Hola, hola, buenos dias, buenas noches, buenas tardes, GnGs. My name is Trekkw2ks, and this is Weekend Crypto brought to you here on the Gentlemen of Crypto Network. If you don't know, the basic idea behind this segment is I cover news that comes out between Friday and Sunday. Um, I'm not focused on the price talk stuff. I'm more focused on things that are in a general event kind of situation as far as is this an indicator or is this an establishing of a trend or a pattern in relation to personalities within this space or that are connected to the space as well as companies and things that are going on with like governments and things along that line. And so I got a bunch of things. I'm gonna try to really condense this, but I definitely see it being over 30 minutes. Like I be trying to really convey this to y'all about how I look at the news stuff where I'm not looking at it from price talk stuff. Um, and as y'all know, there are other people on the network who do cover more price talk related news. King does a really great job and breakdown of things along with Zay at the 10 o'clock hour and the regular live stream if you don't know. And then we got a couple of other folks like Black Rue who does some stuff, and then some other people too like the Stacks who give things more price talk points of view or related information than how I tend to filter out these news stories. So let's just get into these stories, man, because I got a couple of things that definitely got my brain scratching. All right, here we go. All right, so here we have this first story, which is CFTC Commissioner proposes sandbox scheme for digital assets amidst crackdown on DeFi platforms. So CFTC said three digital platforms illegally leverage and margined retail commodity transactions. Oh, come on. In digital assets. So if you don't know who this lady is, she is Caroline Pham, and she's basically the head of the CTFC. She has definitely been making her rounds of appearances and talks in the DC area, as well as any of the more regulatory business related crypto blockchain events. She's been making her rounds. She's out there letting folks know what she's thinking, or at least giving some kind of indicator on how the CFTC is looking to be more active in their regulatory approach and talk to the space. And I'm just saying, if you don't know, like you're about to definitely hear more of how she's looking to bring the spotlight to her agency. So let me just jump into a couple of these stories, well, not stories, but the lines, paragraphs here. So here we are, right? Pham, a commissioner of the U.S. Commodity Futures Trading Commission, launch, proposed regulatory launch a pilot regulatory sandbox scheme for digital assets in a speech delivered before the Cato Institute September the 7th, which is earlier this week. So I'm gonna jump into this next line down here. As y'all know, links for this is in the description, so you can always definitely dig in on this at your own pace. But do understand that because of how the news cycle works, just because the story reads this way when you see me go over it, it doesn't mean that it will actually stay that way. In addition to, it doesn't mean that the link will be up forever. There was something I shared the other day with my guy, Mind Your Biz, and it might have been a week that passed. And a matter of fact, it was the situation with ARK investment, Catherine Woods thing, where they wanted to do some new kind of metrics and definitions for how you evaluate Bitcoin and its value. And lo and behold, a week passed, and then they took the platform that wrote it, took the article down. And then it was kind of hard to find on the ARC site, apparently. But that's my point, to make y'all understand that just because you see it written this way when I'm covering it, it doesn't mean that it will stay that way as we go forward in time. But nonetheless, the links will be in the description so you can follow through, hopefully at some point. If not, just like, find a replay and like screenshot some stuff, I guess. Yeah, so let me jump into this next paragraph. The commissioner noted that a regulatory sandbox program tailored for emerging industry would help support the development of compliant digital asset markets and tokenization. She continued that the program would have input from major stakeholders in the field who would ensure the integrity of our markets and impartial access, foster liquidity and competition, address potential conflicts and risks, and prevent fraud, abuse, practices, and manipulation. Now, if you are new to the crypto space, this is literally the same talking points Hester Pierce used when she wanted to push for the SEC to come up with a sandbox solution to allow companies to come in in full bloom and like say, hey, we want to register with the SEC, and here's what our project is, here's what our code is, here's how everything is going to operate. And then the idea was, well, you got this period of like 2 years. This is literally the same talking points. Here's my thing. um I'm gonna keep saying it this way. As far as the dog whistle has been blown by Biden with the executive order, that was the dog whistle. All of the different agencies and departments, the bureaucratic side outside of Congress, are now going through their various parts of activity to carve out their control area, their area of control within this new developing more than 10-year-old crypto industry, right? So that's what you see going on right now. Yes, arguably the CFTC is kind of late to the party with taking court actions, legal actions, but they are definitely taking actions to get they shares worth. So case in point, I mean, it's not necessarily that much other stuff to really cover about this, but do understand that idea of a sandbox was thrown out as far as like, hey, we should do blah 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 in our in our department. Will it actually go? Will companies actually look to gravitate towards their version of it? Who knows? We'll see. But this counts as an event, and we'll see if it actually pans out into a trend within the industry going forward for who jumps on board. Other thing to note, when they talk about the three DeFi platforms, I've honestly never heard of any of these, but again, I'm not in the DGen part of the space like that nowadays. King might know some of these. I don't know. Some of y'all out there might know some of these names, but the three platforms are Opian, Diridex, and ZeroX. Basically, they made them pony up money. Again, here's the thing to realize about this stuff. If it's saying that it's DeFi and it's saying that it's decentralized, then you got to understand, what are they saying is decentralized? Are they talking about how the network is set up? Are they talking about how the thing is set up as far as a business structure and where they registered? Are they operating under the LLC setup as like this like legal wrapper, which really doesn't work the way some people try to promote it? These companies were actually registered in Delaware, which is another thing, where it's just like, oh, so y'all was just regular companies that did something crypto. So of course you was gonna get touched. Like, but they made enough money to pay what they had to pay, and they're still gonna go forward operating and implementing new um restrictive policies on American-based users. That's the bottom line of the situation with that. There's nothing really else to say about this story other than expect to hear more stuff coming out about the CFTC and how Pham is looking to push the agency into more of the limelight space within the blockchain crypto industry. There we go. All right. So when I first saw this story, I wasn't sure what was going on. So Chainalysis denounces Bitcoin Core contributor as unqualified. Now, there is a reason that this is a big story in my mind. In my mind, this is a big story because basically there's a court situation happening where the defendant is questioning Chainalysis to be like, yo, and I don't know if it's the defendant that came up with this idea or if it was the lawyer that came up with this idea, but I'm actually surprised that more people haven't actually used this as an argument, considering Chainalysis sells a service and a product to the government, as well as they are continually reported or used in reference in American court cases and American criminal and intelligence operations. And so it's one of those like, huh, what's going on here? In that if you guys are so on your game, your argument should be a lot stronger in this court case. And so let me jump into what's going on here. So here we have it, right? If you hadn't had a good laugh at Chainalysis' attempt to defend use of its blockchain forensic software for law enforcement purposes in light of recent court proceedings, now is a good time. After having to admit the lack of scientific evidence for the accuracy of its software and the publication of an expert report describing the use of Chainalysis' heuristics as reckless, Chainalysis finds itself trying to evade an audit of its software source code. Chainalysis source code is requested by the defense in a case. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not. Ooh, wait. Where are we at? I'm reading on another side screen, y'all. Sorry about that. So where am I at right now? Yeah. So Chainalysis source code is requested by the defense in the case of U.S. versus Silvergov, an early Bitcoin adopter currently awaiting trial for an alleged operation of a custodial Bitcoin mixer, Bitcoin Fog, to reproduce the software's finding in light of the lack of corroborating evidence. Sterlingov defense defines access to Chainalysis source code as critical to Mr. Sterlingov's due process rights, given the fact that neither the government nor Chainalysis is able to produce any evidence involving Chainalysis's reactor error rates, rate of false positive, or rate of false negative, nor can the government or Chainalysis produce a single scientific peer-reviewed paper attesting to the accuracy of their software, nor has any independent audit or model validation been performed on Chainalysis reactor. So here's the thing to understand about this, right? So for, I want to say what, we got at least like 3 to 5 years, Chainalysis has been used in multiple state and federal court cases to prosecute people for various things. Hey, you were part of you were a money transmitter and you didn't have a license. Hey, you used a mixer and we can prove it because Chainalysis gave us this report that said blah blah blah. Hey, you were the person, case in point with this gentleman, who wrote and made a mixer, and so we know that you. The funny part is, I don't. The way that this is described in this article, it's not clear. Is it that they're making a connection of, hey, people who did quote illegal things used your mixer, and since you made the mixer, you're responsible for the activity of the users. It's more, it's actually a smart defense as far as like, hey, what happens if they're actually wrong in the, because you have this thing called like margin of error. So like margin of error is like, well, how certain are we that you are 100% right versus like maybe 90% right, that the way that you follow these transactions and who you're saying is who. So they're questioning the whole thing of the software itself, which is actually a pretty smart defense. I'm not gonna lie. The point of where I'm going with this, though, is this is something to pay attention to. Why? And that's where I'm gonna cut the reading there, because now, arguably, dude, Tornado Cash's folks, if they got anything that has Chainalysis in it, like, if I was that lawyer, if I was one of those folks, I'd be like, yo, we need to pay attention to that and see how that goes. Granted, they can't just change their argument in the midst of what's going on, but if they have to end up doing like an appeal or something, I hope that they can at least have this as reference, and that's assuming that it even plays out in where this person wins the case. Now, let me jump into why the title is the way it is said as far as the Bitcoin core thing. So what also happened in the story is that the defense says, hey, we're questioning the source code and we have a bunch of questions about Chainalysis's software, and we have this person who is an expert within the blockchain crypto community. What's the dude's name? Who is the witness? Who is the witness? Oh, Bishop, the dude. Yeah. Bitcoin Core contributor. Something. What's his first name? Where was it? Brian Bishop. And I think I've met him like once. But the point being is that Chainalysis goes on some like, well, he doesn't actually have a degree in engineering, so he doesn't know what he's talking about, and he's not qualified to be able to examine our code, even though he's been a core contributor to Bitcoin Core since 2015, and the dude does talks and everything. So it's one of those like, oh, so you're gonna find if you're like, let's put it this way: if your system is up to snuff, you should have no problem having anyone examine it. So one of two things is going on in this situation. Either there are flaws and errors and questionable things within the software, or there's something else going on about how the software is being used, that if they open it up in public documentation within court, it could affect some of the other government contracts they have. That's how I'm looking at this. But nonetheless, it's still notable that this case is happening, and not necessarily because they're dismissing, the dude Bishop, but more so that someone actually took this as a legal defense against being prosecuted, especially for a mixer. At least that's in my brain of how I'm looking at it. We'll see how this moves forward. I imagine this story is going to come up another time, especially because it's now on Bitcoin Magazine's radar. So yeah. All right, jumping on to this next story. FTX. Yeah. FTX advisors seek refunds on celebrity endorsements. So if you saw how I did the title, you saw what was up. FTX basically is suing the celebrities to get the money back. Shaq is big on the totem pole right now. Oh, let me jump down to, where's it at? I'm gonna read a couple of the sublines and stuff. So FTX advisors are pardon me. FTX advisors working overtime to repay its debt and users, right? So that's what they're saying, even though they were talking about finding how many millions of dollars the other day. In court filing, the exchange is going after celebrity endorsements seeking a potential refund. While it is unclear if FTX will succeed in its hunt, the exchange has historically spent a hefty fund on endorsements. Now, I'm not even going to read none of that. I'm jumping straight to this part of the article down here. I'm going to go through this and hopefully y'all catch why this caught my eye. Although FTX has cautioned that much of the information is inaccurate, it notes that the deposits it ultimately recovers could be substantially large. Here's a brief list of FTX prepayments the exchange is eyeing and believes could be undone. $5 million MLB deal for FTX logo on umpire attire, $12 million partnership with Formula One team, Mercedes AMG Protanis, $3 million for NBA Golden State Warriors FTX endorsement, $1.2 million NBA Washington Wizards, $500 million Miami Heat Entertainment, $250,000. Y'all see what the numbers are. Shaq got $4 million, which I'm wild on that. Plus, he also has a lawsuit going on with Solana right now. Well, basically, it's people who invested in his NFT project that are suing suing him. The NFT project was based on Solana. Anywho, but here's my most notable thing about this. If we know, based on Sam's postings and articles written pre, during, and post FTX, that he was meeting with political people and making donations to political parties and individuals, how is it that there's no mention in this article? Which I wonder, how is it that, like, y'all read through the court documents, but you didn't look at the name of people on the political side, or they didn't actually list any of the political people in the court documents who they want to go after? Which is like, is this one of those, like, we're gonna leave y'all alone, but y'all got to help us on the back end? Like, I don't understand. I just know that it kind of baffles me. There we go. That they're going after the celebrities in order to get to claw back money, but they're leaving the political realm people alone? Or is this just one of those stage things of, when we get closer to the next elections, you're going to start seeing stories pop up with certain people's names? So who's going to be not able to run for their next senator election, their local council person election, the governorship, or what is it, the Senate side, or the House of Representatives side? Like, are we going to see stories pop out down the road as we get closer to the presidential election cycle, as well as other major election cycles coming up between the next 2 years? That's how my thought process is going. I don't know. I just do find it strange that there's no listing of the political stuff going on. And if memory serves right, it was a lot of Democratic folks. It was a lot of blue team members who were seen in pictures with him and such. So yeah. Anywho, that's on that right there. Just like put that on a, pin it on the memory board somewhere, and like we're gonna see how that play out as we go forward. So this next story here, I said, wait, what? Like, what? How does this work? Um, as you saw in the title, I said the French make tests for people who pump crypto. So technically, how this works is, it's really for anyone who markets a financial instrument, and especially if you're paid. So they want you to take a test. You got to get at least like 75 on it, and it's like, okay, you're clear to be able to, you know, advertise any kind of financial instrument. Here's the funky thing about this. All right, you know what? Let me read through a couple of these lines first, and then I'll get into what I find kind of funky about this. So, French social media influencers, including those influencing the crypto industry, must obtain certification in the Responsible Influence in Financial Advertising program before advertising a financial product, according to a September press statement. And this came out from this organization that I'm not even going to mess around with trying to say what it is, but the short is ARPP. Again, link for this will be in the description, so you can definitely look up who this organization is and like where they matter within the mix of this whole thing. And so, jumping down to the next paragraph, the law, which took effect on June 1st, mandates influencers to disclose sponsored content on their page and prohibits them from promoting harmful or unsustainable products and services to their audience. To get the certificate, the influencer must score at least 75 on a 25 multiple choice question that tests their understanding of the rules for financial products. The certificate is only valid for 1 year, and influencers must take the test again to renew. The course covers various topics, including investment products, financial services, crypto assets, and digital asset service providers, and other issues. So, and here's the cap, right? And when I read this, it made me think of something else. So the AMF chair, Maria Ann Barbet-Liani, I guess, said this responsible influence certificate in financial advertising will help to professionalize this field and protect investors from financial products that are too complex or risky. Now, I call cap on this whole statement, because here's the thing. They're basically saying, um, if you do something where you talk about something that can be considered a financial instrument, and I don't think folks generally understand how broad the concept and idea of a financial instrument encapsulates. NFTs are financial instruments. Profile pics are financial instruments. We all get that, cryptos, as far as tokens and regular coins, are financial instruments. Um, so the idea that if you do any kind of talking on whatever social media platform you are on, so this goes from, and arguably this is mainly targeted at the YouTube type of influencers. And then the question comes into, well, it doesn't matter what size my audience is. So let's say, for example, you have the crypto influencer or the influencer who has 2 million followers or subscribers on their channel or on their Twitter thing, versus the person who only has 100. Who do you go after first? Do you go after everyone equally, or do you go after the big person? Logic and like practical real world shit indicates that they will go after the big person first because they have the most viewers, right? Um, this is gonna be one of those like, I hear y'all, but is this really going to pan out the way you think? And I also want to say this almost looks to me like they're setting it up for a money grab, because the test probably can't be no more than, let's say, an equivalent of $25, and that might be a little high. I don't know. I'm actually surprised they didn't say that there was a cost for the test. But the other part that comes into it, especially after I read the quote, was if you're going to do this to people who are in YouTube world, who are social media related influencers, then that means you have to start looking, at least in my mind, at the people who are on news channels, who are on official news station media. So that counts the commentator who works for the news station, as well as the person who they invite on. In my mind, if you're going to start telling people who are in YouTube world, you need to take this test to talk about anything financially related, as a product or service. And understandable, the part of like if you get paid and all that, I got that. Oh, and just remember, not a financial advisor, not a legal person, not a CPA. I don't know what your pockets are. None of this is financial advice. This is just me rambling off the thoughts of how I look at these different news stories and how it makes sense to me or doesn't make sense to me. Case in point with this, it doesn't make sense to me of how they're going to actually enforce this. And at some point, I would also wonder if more than one country picks up on this, would there then be something that you would possibly see in YouTube where they'd be like, oh, you're advertising in something that sounds financial. You need to show us your jurisdiction's verification that you passed, or you have some kind of like local endorsement that says it's okay for you to do this. I might be talking on my ass right now. You can definitely counter me in the comments on this, but I can see some situation like that, especially if you see how YouTube, pardon, YouTube is working right now for how it demonetizes people based on the no-go topics, which means they already have the algos that search through what you're saying through the audio, let alone what the image part of it is. I'm just talking about the audio side of it. And then for the folks who run the transcript, because that's another new feature now where you can put your own transcript in, or you can have the YouTube um AI do the transcript for you. So that's you automatically setting yourself up for getting your stuff searched and cached, or cached and indexed, so they would know like, oh, this person's advertising blah blah blah. I'm just saying that's my thought process. And plus I have another story that will play into this. So it'll be interesting to see if this gets any legs outside of France, let alone if it even works. Like, and again, you also got to look at it that YouTube is not the only media platform to be able to push stuff on. You got Rumble, you got BitChute, you got Odyssey, and I got a story about them, a matter of fact. Um, but yeah, this is going to be interesting to see how this plays out as we get further along in the decade. All right, jumping on to the next. All right, so this story is technically a promotion story, and not on my end, but actually on the end of Being Crypto. Somebody paid for this. Um, the reason why I'm bringing this to your attention is because, one, it is a paid ad, so you have to take. Well, I mean, you got to take all of the shit with a huge grain of salt. And I always tell y'all, you even got to check how I'm delivering the stories, because remember, as I'm saying, I'm filtering this for how I find things interesting or not, or what things connect to me or don't. So my process may be different than your process of what you would find interesting or relatable or relevant to how you're operating in this space, or at least for what you like to pay attention to. The reason I bring this up, because it's not directly a crypto related thing for what they're talking about, but it's crypto related, but it's bigger than crypto. So get into the title of this, right? Here we have it. Why Google's generative AI can transform crypto marketing campaigns. So let's jump into I ain't worried about those headlines. Again, this is a paid article that's on their site, and I think I'm not even gonna get into the companies that probably paid for this. I don't, because I'm not certain who paid for this. If this was a Google thing, or if it's one or both of the companies mentioned in an article. But there's a whole thought process to this. So where are we at? Here we go. So, with the crypto industry becoming an integral facet of the global economy, marketing campaigns for Web3 platforms necessitate more efficiency, relevance, and adaptability. Through its collaboration with Typeface and Growth Loop, Google's generative AI appears to offer a solution for success for such needs. Sorry about that. And then I'm gonna read this last part here. The power of generative AI. Google generative AI platform was introduced at a recent Google Cloud Next conference and aims to revolutionize marketing campaign strategies. The platform's noticeable partnership with Typeface and Growth Loop allow marketers to harness the power of generative artificial intelligence, reducing the time and effort traditionally required to launch potent marketing campaigns. So here's what I'm going to do to surmise this whole thing. One, there was a report that came out a month or two ago about how Google's marketing model, their business model based on advertisement, was making the money, but it wasn't worth what they were charging the advertisers because there was a lot of discrepancies going on. I would argue that this is part of their way to like kind of recover from that thing of saying, hey, well, we have a more better solution as far as where you can track everything and it could cost you X amount less because you won't have to incur the same level of cost of production, right? Cost of production for making the commercial, for making that advertisement. If you're using live people, if you take out the live people and you're just using avatars, and you got to remember, there's also been a couple of stories about now you have these AI influencers, and the money's definitely moving around on that side of the space to create artificial presence that you can do whatever for whatever type of marketing campaign. They walking outside, they're swimming at the pool, they're on a plane. Like it's gonna look real stupid in another 2 years with how the AI integration into what you see on the everyday, whether you're talking a movie, a TV show, a commercial, it's going to be across everything. And arguably, this is going to be one of the things to help propagate the integration of AI into everyday awareness or everyday like interaction and like how we see or what we think we're seeing of what is real versus quote not real. Now, granted, this this tech is basically scaling the company's ability to produce mass content as well as have it be granularly targeted at the viewer. So we can get down to age, gender, political identity, social economic stuff, psychographic. Is it somebody who is more in they're more of an open-minded quote creative person? Are they somebody who is pro LGBTQ and all the other things, and then also be about like a socialistic outlook within life? Like it's to the point where you can get that specific for who the viewer is, and then you can target the ad campaigns to specific demographics and using like check block markers of I want them to meet these 3-4 type of criterias. Here's the other funky thing to understand about this. I I wonder if X amount of the base data or case studies that were used to make this AI, did any of it come from the Facebook situation when they were doing the marketing campaign and political influencing stuff, the political campaigns via Cambridge Analytics. Cambridge Analytics was a was a tech company that offered technical was a marketing company, a tech marketing company that offered the ability of the service that would be able to market and influence target demographics. And Facebook was the vehicle or the medium that they used to do it. I'm curious on if any of the data from that period, from those campaigns, is anywhere in Google's AI generative art stuff or generative algo stuff. I'm curious about that, but I don't know. I'm not digging in on it at that level. Well, I'll probably have something that will shed some light on it somewhere. But the point being is that this is happening, and it's going to be interesting to see how we move through the 2024 into 2025 as far as like what the advertising stuff looks like. And other thing to understand about this, it's not just going to be on YouTube. And I don't watch regular TV, so when I see regular TV and see regular commercials, I be mad surprised because it's like, oh wow, I didn't even know that company did commercials like that now, or that they do commercials. This is definitely going to cross over into TV as well as it's going to be on the YouTube side, and I imagine a number of other platforms are going to look to try to find a way to pick up on this revenue model, because this is a change in the revenue model because it's allowing the vendor to be able to produce content at scale in reducing the production time, production cost, and in the distribution. So eventually you should hear something from Facebook. and how it's pushing it out through all of its platforms. So that's the IG, something probably in WhatsApp, that's going to be Instagram, and like whatever else they come up with, right? But this is definitely an indicator for me. All right, jumping on to this next thing. So the senators unveil bipartisan blueprint for comprehensive AI regulation. The legislation is expected to be a guide for managing both potential benefit and risk associated with AI technology. As I say, links for this will be in the description. You can definitely go through it how you need to. We're gonna jump through a couple of lines, and I'm gonna just give you the thought. So, two United States senators unveiled a bipartisan blueprint for artificial intelligence legislation on Friday, as Congress intensifies its endeavors to regulate the emerging technology. The framework put forward by Senators Richard Blumenthal, damn, that's a weird name, bro. That had to be hard in high school. And Josh Hawley advocate for mandatory licensing for AI firms that make clear that technology liability makes it clear that technology liability protections will not shield these companies from legal actions. In a statement on X, formerly Twitter, Blumenthal expressed that this bipartisan framework represents a significant step forward, a robust, comprehensive legislative plan for concrete and enforceable AI safeguards. It is expected. All right, I'm gonna stop because it's all cap. It's all cap. Here's why. This is the initial version of what the legislation should look like. We don't know what the final version of the legislation would look like. We don't know what the exemptions are. I'm gonna jump into this joint down here though. Here's what they're saying now. Again, link for this will be in the description, so y'all can definitely follow up on it at your own leisure. Do take into account it might not be the way you see it here as I'm reading it now. So some of the things that they're looking to add into this framework. So what is it? Establishing a licensing regime administration by an independent oversight body. I mean, yeah, it sounds nice as far as being independent, but it's not. Ensuring legal accountability for harm. I had a thought about that one in particular, right? Because it's like saying, like, all right, bet if and I literally had a conversation with somebody about cyber warfare yesterday, and I made a point to them about how we can never sign, as far as the U.S. gang, we can never sign any international treaty that's like in full faith of us not doing something that's against what the treaty thing is. Why? Because we're always doing the thing that is against what the treaty is, and we always throw it under national security or some other kind of like national importance thing. And so, case in point with this joint, where it's like, oh, well, we want to hold the producers of the AI accountable if someone uses the AI to commit something that's harmful. And then there's a whole thing about what is the harmful thing means. Here's the issue with that. If you know anything about 0-day vulnerability markets, or they call it the gray market, the idea that not just us alone as America, but other countries too outsource getting 0-day vulnerabilities produced, as well as when people discover them, they pay them to not tell about it publicly. The point of where I'm going towards this is, if you make a 0-day vulnerability or make some kind of virus that is able to get into something, who gets held accountable for that if you're an official company, and if you're a company that gets contracted by the government? So if you make an AI that is specifically focused on finding vulnerabilities or creating some kind of software that is meant to cause damage to another system, who gets held accountable for that? Where and so this is what I'm saying. This brings me to, this initial version of what's proposed is just an initial version of what's proposed. It's not the final product. And on top of it, this doesn't mention any of who is exempt. And I 100% promise you, there is definitely exemptions in this. But that's not what we're going to talk about. At the end of the day, this is just some folks trying to say, hey, Congress is being on it. We're being proactive. The idea that how am I saying this? It's bipartisan, like the identity politics thing, it means nothing. Um, at the end of the day, there's going to be a certain level of accountability that will be acquired through the setting up of rules and regulations via Congress, and then there's going to be the part that disseminates down through whatever department or agency that's going to be like the guiding, governing part of it. I don't know who's that is actually going to fall under, but there will definitely be exemptions in it as far as certain departments and agencies on the executive side of our law enforcement within the U.S. There's a whole thing about that I didn't know until recently about how there are certain policing agencies or law enforcement agencies. Not all of them fall under the executive branch. I didn't know that until recently. You can also fall. There's one for the judicial branch, which is the Supreme Court police, and then there's another two or something under the not the legislative branch. But anywho, I'm running off topic. Sorry, let me jump to this next story. Damn, I got a couple more to go. All right, so this story, as I've said to y'all before, some of these platforms now started jumping into this thing of where they're covering stories that are not directly, they are not directly uh, crypto related, but they're crypto related if you understand how these things connect. Case in point here, again, this is the SEC being cool with the Wall Street folks, like, yo, well, all right, y'all want to put some AI into your trade orders? Go for it, no problem. Which basically means the SEC gave Wall Street the blessings to upgrade their high frequency trading bots and putting in the upgrade is basically adding in a more sophisticated trading bot that has quote AI level intelligence to it. The short of this is the level of front running that and other gimmicks that are about to take place is going to be crazy on the open market, which arguably is not even that open. But anywho, so like NASDAQ announces that United States Securities and Exchange Commission has approved its request to operate the first exchange AI-driven order type on September 8th, called the Dynamic Midpoint Extended Life Order, the MILO. That's how I'm saying it. The new system expands on the MILO automated order by making it dynamic, meaning that it will use artificial intelligence to update and essentially recalibrate itself in real time. So basically, listen, and this is literally going to follow the same setup that Wall Street had, as far as where like once the internet started being a thing and they were able to integrate the ability to get the message faster, the signal faster by adding in the servers closer to Wall Street, closer to the stock market, versus someone who's all the way out in Florida, versus the office that is all the way out in Chicago, versus the office that is all the way in California, versus the office that's all the way in like the Caribbean, right? It's who gets the signal faster to be able to interpret the data. That's what this is about right here. So now you add in that you have crypto related companies that are now on the NASDAQ and on the stock market, right? You have IT related companies, you have farming related companies, you have the prison industrial complex. As far as those companies, the level of arbitrage and mixing that is about to be unleashed onto the American market, or whoever has access to the NASDAQ, whether they be overseas or here in the States, it's going to look crazy. And I can only imagine what these commercials are going to look like for the NASDAQ on CNN and all of them over the next like 15, 18 months. So just so y'all aware, like that's another thing that came down, and that's about to, it's going to look real interesting, y'all. It's something to keep on the radar, is my point. All right, jumping into this Decrypt story. And on a happy note, arguably, I think how this African nonprofit is building an army of Bitcoin devs. And I saw this one and I was like, all right, like they got to be something happy. Yo, I got another sideline story. Let me get through this first and then jump into that one. So how this African nonprofit is building an army of Bitcoin devs, the renamed BTrust Builders, has placed developers with Sphinx Chat, Galoy, Bitnobe, Chain Code Labs, Heartbit, Ibex, and Wrigley. And so basically, let's just jump into this. So, Koala, a little-known African nonprofit, has been quietly training developers to work at Bitcoin and Lightning Network firms across the continent. Earlier this week, the group announced that it's getting the financing from it needs to scale up its efforts, with a little support from billionaire Bitcoiner Jack Dorsey, and it has now been acquired by BTrust. So BTrust is the company that, well, I'll get into that part here. So BTrust is a nonprofit organization dedicated to decentralizing development of BTC software, announced its deal to acquire Quala. Damn, they messed up on the spelling on this actually. Quala earlier this week and renamed it BTrust Builders program. And so that's basically the joint that Jay-Z and Jack Dorsey worked on. And so the idea behind this, and I think this is a good story, and I guess to say hand claps and all that for Bitcoin as a whole, because now we have more developers in the space. Now we have more people who know the technical level of stuff in regards to how to help maintain the Bitcoin core stuff, as well as, you know, at some point figuring out how to add some other features and functions into the Bitcoin protocol that would help it be more adaptive, arguably, as we go along further into the decade and beyond. So hand claps on that one. That's a good thing. I just wanted to throw that positive story in there. And yeah, I guess we'll see how things pan out over the next coming couple of years. The only thing that I didn't like about this article was it didn't talk about like, well, how many people had they taken into the program? How do you get into the program? What countries is the program operating in? So that's the only thing I didn't like about how Decrypt covered the story. I feel like they could have did better in that regards, but that's just my thought. So here's this other joint right here. That you got to look at it and go like, okay, Consensus owned Infura plans to start decentralizing by the end of 2023. So the headline says that, but then when you read this line down here, it reads different. Infura said it plans to release a decentralized version of its service by the end of 2023, which is, to me, a different thing than what the headline reads, because that to me sounds like that's two different. It's like a fork. So we got Ethereum Classic and then we got Ethereum. So this is like a Infura centralized, and then you have Infura decentralized. I'm throwing it out that way as far as saying that this is like two different entities, and it doesn't necessarily make sense to me. Considering that Consensus owns it, and this is actually the second spin-off version of Consensus. There's a whole backstory on how Lubin did his whole thing with this, and that Infura is one of the IPs under Consensus. So this idea of, hey, we're going to do a decentralized version, I'm wondering, the bottom line is, at this point, most of us understand that decentralization versus centralization is a sliding scale, and it has a number of components to it that goes, well, how decentralized is it? Are you a registered company in a specific location and jurisdiction? Can your people who help build, maintain, and support your project, your protocol, your company, can they be touched by the law? There's a level of centralization to that. Are you registered in some place like the United States, and do you have an office somewhere? There's a level of centralization right there. Versus the like, hey, we're not registered in any country. We just pushed our product out, and like people use it and they do what they do with it. That's all it is. It's a difference. And so as far as Infura is concerned, 100% centralized company. It's registered. I think they're registered here in the States in Delaware, or I'm not certain exactly. That would be something to look up actually. But jumping into the point of this, where are we at? Yeah, let me get into these paragraphs. Infura, a blockchain infrastructure service provider owned by Consensus, plans to release a decentralized version of its services by the end of 2023 that will be operated by multiple entities to make it resilient to outages. So again, that sounds to me like Infura, as it is today, is going to stay what it is, but they're going to fork off another version of it to be, quote, the decentralized version. That's what that reads like to me. I might be wrong. Y'all can let me know in the comments on this. I do appreciate. So the decentralized effort is planned to take place in various phases. The firm told The Block the governance model for the decentralized Infura, either a DAO or a foundation, has not yet been determined. And again, this gets into the thing of, all right, Ruben is about playing it by the rules. Consensus plays it by the rules. Infura plays it by the rules. They're a registered company. So where are you going to have this company register? Is it going to be Utah? Is it going to be Wyoming? Is it going to be Delaware? Are you going to try to do some UAE thing? Are you going to try to do what's the island down in the Caribbean? I can't remember the name of right now. But that's going to be interesting because y'all are going to look to register somewhere and fall under somebody's jurisdiction. That much I can see. I don't know how this is going to play out as far as like for where it is right now in the right side of the scale of decentralization versus centralization. I don't know how far left this would end up being by the time they completely make, quote, this decentralized version of Infura. It will be also interesting to see if any other infrastructure provider tries to do this. Arguably, this is probably their version of what Shapeshift did with Eric Voorhees, and how he was like, all right, bump it. We're going to leave money on the table. We're going to restructure the whole business. We're going to restructure our technology stack. And we're really going to push on this decentralization thing as far as how the infrastructure works, how our governance part of this thing works, how much control we have and don't have over what happens within the within our services and the information we hold about our users. I don't know if I see Infura going that way, but this might be them trying to halfway walk there. We'll see how it goes. The story will definitely pop up again. I can see that much. All right. Jumping into this next joint. Crypto firm Riot defends Texas power strategy after a headline claims the state paid miners. So, all right. There has been, and who was I talking to about this? Um, 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 damn, bro, why I can't remember your name right now? Crypto, I am so sorry, bro. I can't remember your name right now. We were literally talking about this in a DM the other day. But here's the thing. So basically what happened was during the week a story came out saying that the firm Riot got paid by Texas, and it was a couple, like, was it a double digit million number, right? And so Riot is like, oh well, that's not actually accurate, we didn't actually get paid like what people are thinking, the story read wrong, blah blah blah. I'm not even gonna go through the whole thing on this. Here's what I'm gonna say. So basically what's going on is Texas has this energy program where if you buy energy prorated, and then it ends up being that you can sell some of that prorated credits back to the grid. And then you can also do this other thing of where if you turn off some of your facilities' energy need, they'll pay you for that too, right? And so apparently there's a number of companies that are participating in this. It just so happens that we're focusing on crypto right now, and particularly the mining sector. And like I said, there's been a number of stories that have been popping up about this mining situation as far as the profitability, because crypto is so low. I'm not saying this is a price thing. I'm not endorsing any particular company, but it's that to note that I don't know why the stories are being spun the way they're being spun and popping out the way they're popping out. Because they're not even the only company that got a story about them getting money from the Texas energy buyback thing. I think they were one of the crypto companies that got the highest amount of money versus the other like two or three companies that were also noted for getting money back. And it's in separate articles, by the way. I just happen to pick this one as the thing to focus on. But the other part that I want to throw into the mix on this is if this continues, and based on what I've seen in the other stories and the issue that the mining companies are having for how they leveraged their financing to get more hardware, and with the price drop thing, I think if I'm understanding this or picturing it right, Texas, the energy market in Texas might be a new form of a lick if you are and I'm gonna say data center versus a crypto mining company. In that if you're a data center, which X number of the states are labeling these crypto mining facilities as, you have certain protective rules, and then we saw that X number of the states started doing things to protect mining operations by putting them under the data center label for the state's regulatory stuff. But they were also at the same time, how am I saying this? The bottom line is I think that there may be something that changes in how crypto mining companies either add in or adjust their revenue models to start, and this might be me being really late on understanding what's playing out on it, and it's only because I'm just catching these articles like this now. But this might be a turn in how companies will get into crypto mining, because not for the crypto's like arguably secondary, but it's more so about being able to get the state or to get federal dollars, state or federal dollars, for how they do the buyback for the energy that they consume within that region's grid. That's what I'm trying to say. Which then makes, well, since X amount of the industry is already pushing the whole green thing for renewable energy, I'm wondering if that might be a new way to get money out of the system. That's just my thought process on there. We'll see how many stories come out over the next coming years. I definitely see it. Oh, there was also a merge between a Bitcoin American company and a Canadian company, and they were going to relocate the headquarters on the American side. Like I said, like there's stuff happening on this crypto mining side, and I think like X amount of the space, even though they're showing Bitcoin as the thing here, as like it's a big B, um, this is bigger than just the Bitcoin thing. We're talking about all types of mining, whatever thing you're mining. It's other stuff playing out. So yeah, something else to keep on the radar. It's not me endorsing any company. It's not me saying, hey, put your money here or anything. Remember, I'm not doing price talk. I'm not a CPA. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not the financial advisor. It's just there's things that I'm seeing companies and personalities move in this space right now that it's like, okay, this is either a confirmation. I think this is an indicator because I don't know the crypto mining side like that, but I think this is an indicator for another way that companies that are looking to either make profit or find some level of stability in the down period, this thing of the energy buyback will probably be a more sizable thing on their what is it, the profit margin line thing. But anywho, last story. I hate how this thing works for the site. Come on. No. All right, it didn't do it. So bottom line is this: Library, a blockchain-based file sharing and payment network, has decided to fight back against the United States Security and Exchange Commission. So basically, they're doing an appeal saying, "Hey, we want to have a review of how the SEC won the case against us, and excuse me, we are looking to have it reviewed." Honestly, not 100% certain if this is going to pan out or happen. And so time will tell. And the crazy part is that even with all of this going down, like there's nothing that's stopping them from doing the oh, you can't even close that way. That sucks. That is stopping them from, because they have like over the next 2 years they have to shut down operations according to the case and the way that the SEC want it. But hopefully if they can get a review in a reasonable amount of time, it can pause things, and then hopefully they win the appeal, and then they get to figure out another way to like stay, open. But arguably, this is a good thing to show that they're still in the fight. Arguably, this is a good thing in regards to like decentralized streaming platforms and social media in that regards. Arguably, this is also a good thing to show that, hey, like there are some highlights or good points or resources within the legal framework for when you feel that you've been stepped on or over abused by, the larger entities within the government. And so again, hopefully this works out for them. All right. I don't even like how this looks. Isn't that the lower third thing was annoying me, and then you can't close it the way that they have it. But anywho, point being is that is the end of the stories that I got for you. As you heard, it's a number of different things that happen, and I had at least like 15 other things that like were on the radar. I can't share everything, I can't cover everything, but this is to say that something is always happening, and the question is just like, how are you cross-referencing stuff? Because sometimes it's not about who raised what money or whose price went to whatever. It's about the other things going on that might somehow relate to that company, that personality, or where it is or how it is you're looking to operate in a space. Hence why I cover these stories the way I do. And I just want to say thank you for the folks who came back to listen on my rambles, and hopefully something I said makes sense to you, or at least gets you to question what's going on. That's at least what I want to happen. At least question it. If it sounds like, yo, that man don't know what he's talking about. He's talking about some straight dumbness. Okay, cool. Counter me. Comments is always open. As we continually say, we don't delete, we do keep receipts, right? So other than that, I guess to say, as usual, have a productive over busy day. If you don't know, it is 9/11. For those of you who have been in the States for how long, we know what that means. And this is an extra like heartfelt. If it can't be a productive over a busy day, at least be in a safe place, in a safe space, and in good company. Because there's definitely some people who 20 something years later, 9/11 weighs very heavy for them. Very heavy. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it on that one, y'all. Other than that, until the next one, yeah, one.